Juliana Peña shocked the world. She is coming off her most recent win at UFC 269, which saw her capture the UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship. And what makes this win more impressive is that she beat the consensus greatest female fighter of all time in Amanda Nunes to capture this belt. It's honestly so amazing because it was a long time coming for her. Season 18 winner of The Ultimate Fighter. After she wins The Ultimate Fighter, has a big injury that keeps her out on the sidelines for a year and a half, comes back. Lots of promise early on, but then she loses to Valentina Shevchenko, wins against former champion Nico Montano, then loses to former champion in Jermaine Durandamy, picks up another win against Sarah McMahon. So it was just up and down, up and down. And to be honest, it didn't really seem like she had a really consistent career. Going into that fight against Amanda Nunes, I could understand the talk of her not being able to win this fight, even though she had a lot of confidence going in and was calling her shots and was saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm a real challenge for her. Little did we know she was serious and she was going to back up that talk, which is why this is so awesome and I'm excited to make this video for sure. So how did Juliana Peña get so good? First, I'm going to give a shout out to the Undisputed members of my Patreon. They get the extra perk of a shout out before each video, but even interim members get early access and video to the Kiiyon Kimura podcast. And as always, the money goes to charity. Now, let's get to it. Juliana began her MMA career on May 9th, 2009 at the age of 19. After going 3-0, she fought Rachel Swaits. Juliana immediately presses forward and connects with some punches that drops Rachel, and this leads to ground and pound and some submission attempts for the entire round basically. And even though Sarah survived that first round, I think the ref or her corner should have stopped the fight, but she continued to the second and the beatdown continued. This led to a desperation takedown from Rachel, but this gave Juliana the chance to lock up a guillotine that forced a tap. But after this win, she lost her next two fights against Sarah Moras and Deanna Bennett. The fight against Sarah Moras, 2 months before that fight went down, Juliana was in an accident where she was walking and then she got hit by a drunk driver. She suffered some injuries, and although she lost to Sarah Moras, I gotta give her credit for fighting after getting hit by a car. Despite these two defeats, she gets the call to fight for a place in the Ultimate Fighter house for the 18th season, which was going to be the first season that had female contestants. So in the fight to make it into the house, Juliana fought Gina Mazzani. It was an absolute dominant performance from Juliana, who was rushing forward with punches on the feet, securing takedowns, throwing some vicious ground and pound. Gina had no answer, so by the end, Juliana won by unanimous decision, which means she made it into the Ultimate Fighter house. In the preliminary round, she fought Shayna Baszler. Shayna looked really good early by securing takedowns, attempting a rear naked choke. Juliana had her moments, but overall, I think Shayna won the first round. But going into the second, Shayna was clearly getting very tired and Juliana was still fresh. It made it easy for Juliana to connect on the feet more, land her shots, which led to a takedown. And after some ground and pound, she locked up a rear naked choke that forced Shayna to tap. In the semifinals, Juliana fought Sarah Moras, making it their second meeting. Juliana absolutely dominated this fight. She secured multiple takedowns, maintained top control for most of round one, and that continued into round two. Sarah had no answers and was quickly getting tired, and this gave Juliana the opportunity to go for the guillotine choke, which forced Sarah to tap right away. And with this win, that means Juliana advanced to the Ultimate Fighter finale, which went down on November 30th, 2013. Her opponent was Jessica Rakosi, and once again, Juliana looked very good. Didn't want to make it too much of a technical stand-up battle because Jessica is a boxer, so she took the fight down through ground and pound, and eventually the punches were too much and this forced referee Mario Yamasaki to step in, making Juliana Peña the Ultimate Fighter Season 18 winner and the first female fighter to win the Ultimate Fighter. Juliana was expected to fight Jessica Andrade at UFC 171, but she suffered a knee injury, had issues with her ACL, MCL, LCL, and meniscus. And this required surgery and rehabilitation, which meant Juliana was out for the entire year of 2014. So she came back in April of 2015 to fight Milana Dudieva. The two clinch up right away, and Milana, she secures a takedown, but Juliana stayed busy on the ground with a submission attempt. Ultimately, she got back up, and this led to a takedown of her own. And when she gets in the mount and postures up, she throws down ground and pound, and eventually this forces referee Keith Peterson to step in. At UFC 192, Juliana fought Jessica Ai. Juliana had a good round one by bringing the fight down, maintaining top control, and connecting with some ground and pound. But then in round two, Jessica brought the fight down herself, and she looked close to locking up a rear naked choke and also an arm triangle choke at one point. But Juliana was able to survive and reverse the position. This leads to a knee from Jessica, which connected to Juliana's head while she was a grounded opponent. So the action got stood up, and this forces the ref to deduct a point from Jessica. And then in round three, Juliana continues with the pressure on the feet before bringing the fight down again. And for most of the final round, it's just her on top, connecting with shots from above and attempting submissions. So by the end, Juliana won by unanimous decision. At UFC 200, she fought Kat Zingano. Kat looked good early as she secured multiple takedowns and was maintaining top control. That continued in the second until Juliana reversed position, and this led to her attempting a rear naked choke, which looked really tight, but Kat was able to survive. But she was tired by this point, and the same thing happened in round three. Juliana was able to get a hold of Kat's back and was attempting that rear naked choke, was also throwing some shots from above. Overall, she looked really good in the final two rounds, and this was enough for Juliana to win by unanimous decision. This 4-fight win streak led to her first UFC headliner. So on January 28, 2017, she fought Valentina Shevchenko. And even though Juliana was pressing forward and putting a lot of pressure on Valentina, Valentina was able to bring the fight down and have some moments on the ground. Juliana was unable to get much done in the first, but in the second, she did secure a takedown of her own finally. But while off her back, Valentina locked up an armbar, and this forced Juliana to tap. After this defeat, Juliana said that she was going to be taking a hiatus from the sport because she was going to become a mother. So after being on the sidelines for 2.5 years, she came back in July of 2019 to fight former UFC flyweight champion Nico Montano. It was a competitive first round early as both women were exchanging on the feet and on the ground, but for the most part, Nico was finding more success with her grappling as she secured multiple takedowns and was maintaining top control for the most part. But then in round two, Juliana began to find more success with her grappling. She was taking the fight down, attempting submissions, throwing ground and pound. So by the end, she won by unanimous decision. She was expected to fight Aspen Ladd in March of 2020, but Juliana had to pull out due to injury. So after a 1.5 year layoff, she comes back to fight former UFC featherweight champion Germaine de Randamie. Early on, Germaine was looking good with her striking as she was using her reach to her advantage, connecting with some nice shots, but avoiding most of Juliana's shots as well, avoiding most of the pressure from Juliana. But in round two, Juliana was finding more success with her grappling as she secured takedowns and threw shots from above. This got Germaine tired quickly, and by round three, it was clear that Juliana was a fresher fighter as now she was the one who was connecting with the better shots on the feet. But then she makes a mistake by shooting for a takedown because Germaine de Randamie gets a hold of her neck right away and locks up that guillotine, which puts Juliana to sleep. After this defeat, she came back at UFC 257 to fight Sarah McMahon. And early on, Sarah was looking good by securing a few takedowns and attempting a rear naked choke, which looked really tight. But while she was on top, she wasn't really doing that much. And by the second round, Juliana was the fresher fighter. And even though she got taken down again, she was staying busy off her back and also had some moments while on the feet. And by the final round, Sarah was definitely fatigued. And to prove that, Juliana was able to take the Olympic silver medalist in wrestling down. And after some ground and pound, she locked up the rear naked choke that forced Sarah to tap. Even though she was on a 1-fight win streak, Juliana decided that she was going to call out UFC women's bantamweight champion Amanda Nunes. And I don't think anyone ever called out the champion like this before, which made it very intriguing despite Juliana not having the momentum that most challengers usually have. But at this point, the women's bantamweight division was so stagnant because Amanda was at the top for so long. So the UFC was looking for anyone to fight her at this point, and this seemed like the most exciting option discussion. So at UFC 269, Juliana fought for the UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship against champion Amanda Nunes. And right away, it looked like it was going to be a classic Amanda Nunes beatdown as she was landing the better shots on the feet. She stunned Juliana at one point, and on the ground, she looked close to submitting her. But Juliana did not seem defeated by the time that round ended. So by round 2, she really began to bring the fight to Amanda by pressing forward, throwing punches. And for the most part, it was working as she was tagging Amanda despite eating some shots as well. And you can see that Amanda was getting tired and quickly slowing down. And every shot that Juliana was landing, the crowd was roaring in excitement because we had never seen the champion in this much adversity. So Juliana was finding a lot of success on the feet, but she decided it was a good time to change the levels and secure a takedown, which she did, and this ultimately led to the rear naked choke that forced Amanda Nunes to tap, making Juliana Peña the new UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion. So after going 11-4 in a career that saw her become the UFC Women's Bantamweight Champion and the Ultimate Fighter Season 18 winner, how did Juliana Peña get so good? I'll start off with saying this. I feel like a lot of the reason why Juliana was such a huge underdog going into this fight against Amanda Nunes was because we've all seen the sacrificial lamb storyline before. We saw the same thing play out a few months back with Valentina Shevchenko against Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy was very similar in that she was saying, I have what it takes to do it. I have what it takes to become the champion and beat Valentina Shevchenko at 125 pounds. High hopes for herself, but ultimately she got dominated. And I think a lot of people thought the same thing was going to happen with Juliana, even though Juliana was talking a lot of game prior to this fight. It's not going to stop the dominance from these champions. So I personally thought because of the amount of talking she was doing that even if she wasn't going to win, it was going to be a very close fight. But for her to win this, it's one of the biggest upsets in MMA history. But should it be considered an upset? I would consider it an upset in the sense of I didn't see Amanda Nunes losing a fight for the rest of her career. If you were to say it's an upset that Juliana Peña would become a UFC champion, I don't think that was an upset because throughout her career, she always had glimmers of hope where it really seemed like she was on the path to become a champion because she has the skills to do it. She is very intimidating on the feet. I think that's the best way to describe it because she presses forward. She doesn't get scared of getting hit because her chin is amazing. Her cardio is also amazing, so she doesn't slow down at all. Continues to press forward, lands some shots. She's making it her fight. She's brawling and she thrives when the fight gets messy. That's been proven against Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes gave some of her best shots to Juliana in their fight, but Juliana was eating them and still connecting with some of her own. Yeah, she may not be primarily a striker, but she is able to put her opponent in danger while on the feet. But of course, her bread and butter is her ground game. Her ground game is very solid for sure. She's not a traditional wrestler in that sense, but her trips are very effective. And even in the clinch, she's able to bring the fight down. Obviously, her takedowns are not like the main component of her grappling game. It's mostly when she's on the ground and connecting with ground and pound and also attempting submissions. Her ground and pound is very vicious, man. Once she gets onto that mount and starts raining down the shots, that viciousness that you see on the feet when she presses forward translates to the ground with her ground and pound. And then, yeah, she's good at locking up submissions in general. 5 of her wins have ended by submission. And like I said, with her crazy conditioning and ability to take shots, she's able to keep up this pace both on the feet and on the ground for the entire fight. I will say that she is a slow starter and tends to lose the first round before she warms up and finally gets things going. But even that shows how mentally tough she is as she still goes strong and doesn't get down on herself despite knowing that she's behind in the fight. So overall, I think it's clear to say that Juliana is an all-around fighter. But what makes all of this even better is her newfound confidence in life. And I think this confidence came through the highs and lows throughout her career. And that saw her missing out on fighting because of injuries. That saw her missing out on fighting because she became a parent and also a single parent to make matters even more difficult for her. She was not winning all of her fights. She was losing some fights. But let's be honest, these losses were to some high-level fighters in Valentina Shevchenko and Germaine de Randamie. And in both of these fights, Juliana Peña had her moments. So she always had the skills to be a champion. But I think now it all worked out because of her confidence. Even though she was on a one-fight win streak, she said, I'm calling out my shot. I'm going to do it. I don't care because I know I can become a champion. And to say that against someone who has been champion for so long and has been so dominant is a crazy thing to say. But she believed in herself so hard. And I think that belief in herself to accomplish her goals is so inspiring. And I felt inspired by it when she won the championship, where she's been through all these highs and lows. And she has always been a good fighter, but she's been slept on because she never really built the proper amount of momentum for herself. It always seemed to dwindle down because of some certain event in life. But then she called her shot, and once she got that shot, she took advantage of the situation. She said, look, I may never get another shot at the title ever again because it's been so hard for me to get one in the first place. I'm not gonna mess this up. And her career is a very good example of how momentum changes our perception of how good fighters are. Because like I said, she had no momentum behind her going into this fight against Amanda Nunes. It just seemed like it was going to be another beatdown for Amanda Nunes. I definitely underestimated Juliana Peña. And with this win, she has proven to not just everyone, but also to herself how confident she is as a fighter right now. And I really hope that confidence takes her far as a champion, because not only would it be good for her and her career, but it will also be good for the division. Regardless of whatever happens, Juliana Peña became a UFC champion. And when people said she couldn't do it, she proved them wrong big time. My name is Kiiyon, and this is my take on Juliana, the Venezuelan vixen Peña. Do you agree, disagree, or have something else to add? Please put in the comments down below, because I love to read it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. But that's all out for now, so I'll see you in my next one.